So first and foremost, thank you all for this opportunity, and an esteemed thank you to my fellow panelists today for your company and insights. I truly am humbled by your smarts. My name is Jason Bischoff, and I know I may read as a bit of an odd duck on the docket, but it's my hope to entertain and, with any luck, educate nonetheless. Before we dive in today, let's talk about this: Impressionism. Pop culture, or geek culture, is in general, at best, Impressionism. Up close, it is a raw, amorphous, elusive, and arguably an indefinable thing. Under the microscope, it can seem untamed and unstructured, aside from the odd rough patch of color. That said, when we withdraw to a safe distance, suddenly our perspective changes. It can be emotional, irrational, and sensational. Suddenly, what was once chaos becomes a tapestry of understanding, a collective of ideas, a moment captured in time. There are many wondrous reasons for why this is the case, why our minds work this way. This presentation, however, has nothing to do with any of that. Instead, it dares to suggest that the geeks have inherited the earth, or a hastily thrown together expose on the migration of geek culture into the mainstream. By the way, that piece you just saw a moment ago, if I can click back to it, I don't know if this is working from across the room here. There we go. This was actually a DC Comics twist on a famous Syrah. It was illustrated by a good buddy of mine, Ray. Oh, thank you. Swap. Trazies. There we go. It was illustrated by a good buddy of mine, a guy named Ray Tyra. You can catch him on DeviantArt under the handle Radiation Actor. Okay. Let's see. And just so you're aware, it is called Saturday Morning in Front of La Salle de Justice by Ray Tyra. All right. So first, a parental advisory. Here we go. First, I am a writer. We'll get into the specifics in a second, but just in case you were wondering why this Yahoo was standing here reading, it is because I make no claim to be a performer. But I do make a claim to be a writer, and what is a writer if not a reader? Make sense? Moving on. Second, anything I may say, do, or show in the course of today's presentation is expressly of my own opinion, unless otherwise noted. I make no claim to be here on behalf of my past, present, or future employers. Third, what I will be presenting here today is by no means science. It is an undisciplined pseudoscience, observational at best, meaning it's not C-SPAN's cold, meticulous reality, nor is it Fox News' panache for improvisational comedy, but rather a happy, healthy medium at, say, Discovery Channel during Shark Week. Fourth and finally, I am a self-prescribed geek. Have been my entire life. But being a geek on stage does not necessarily make me any sort of representative of the broader community. I am simply an ambassador of my kind. Like some of you in the audience may represent Buddhists, or basketball players, or simply Californians. My point is, in a Lorax reversal, I speak not for the trees. All right, as I mentioned earlier, my name is Jason Bischoff, and in the interest of time, I'm going to finagle the process of getting to know one another and simply put my cards on the table. My 6 picks. 6 because your short-term memory may actually retain them. Judgment hats on. Ready? That's 2. All right. So I went to college, Concordia University, Irvine, to be exact. It's a tiny little liberal arts school where I earned a degree in, surprise, surprise, writing, but with a minor in anthropology. How the two overlap? Stay tuned. I'm also a writer-creator by trade, meaning I've written professionally and I've been published. As my prime interest is writing for children and teens, you'll find most of my work in that genre. Specifically, I've worked on 4 iterations of Ninja Turtles, which was mentioned prior, including the most recent version on Nickelodeon, Ben 10, Disney Princess, Strawberry Shortcake, and Wonder Woman, to name a few. Cartoons and comics are and have always been my jam. And I'm very grateful for all I've been afforded in the field of entertainment. We're going to get like 4 of them, watch. Okay, so I also happen to be the director of global consumer products for Saban Brands. You may know Saban as the owner-producer of, amongst other things, Power Rangers. Oh, yeah. Love that. Okay, good. Cool. I'm a huge Rangers fan. Entering its 23rd season, there's also a super sophisticated Lionsgate feature film coming out next spring that reinvents the original Mighty Morphin franchise in a never-before-seen legit take. It's super exciting, and shameless plug. I also happen to be a happily married 30-something. I've been with my wife for 10 years this year and what will be 3 married. She's awesome. She's an actor. She's an awesome actor, and she's sitting in the audience. I love you, Beeps. Politically speaking, I'm an independent that unashamedly leans left. And lastly, I'm a practicing Lutheran, which is just like being a Catholic, but without the guilt and indulgences. All right, we square? Got me pegged? Begs the question, why do we, as a culture, tend to hold occupation, relationship status, political views, and/or religion as a means to an end, a cheat sheet for rash judgments? The answer, sadly, is tradition. For nearly as long as humans have meaningfully run around the earth, it has been this way. We are, after all, a tribal people, finding those of common ideas and common interest to push forward our tribal vision. And it's no surprise. Society is nothing if not utilitarian. This behavior has afforded countless generations the chance to set strategy and survive. But what if I were to suggest that today, things are different? What if tribalism has evolved beyond the basic pick six, in a phenomena changing the very fabric of our culture? What if I said the new currency was you are what you geek? Clear your minds. Forget everything you've ever learned about me for just a moment. Instead, afford me a reintroduction. Okay, here we go. These 6 brands taught me everything I have ever wanted to learn about myself, and in many cases, the world. I have met countless friends over the course of loving these ideas. In fact, some of the earliest chemistry between me and my brilliant wife was built on the foundation of our mutual admiration for the very geeky stuff that we had grown up with. It has set a tone for the last decade of our lives, informing countless decisions from a consumer's perspective and how we spend our free time. I ask you to stop for a second and recognize the incredible power at play here. Some of you are smiling. Maybe that's because you and I share a common interest in one or more of these ideas, and it tickles your heart. The rest of you are obviously lifeless monsters, void of any real joy in your meaningless lives. I kid, of course, because truth be told, even if one, more, or all of these ideas hold no value for you or your tribe mentality, you are at least familiar enough to know that they are not part of what makes you, you. So let's dive into the meat and potatoes of why this is the case. And to do so, I'm going to use an easy-to-digest format taught to me by one of the greatest mentors of my life, a pastor named Jim Hale. Jim, a practical, kind man, knew that people wouldn't and couldn't swallow a sermon unless you gave them 3 very important things: the what, the so what, and the now what. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the what. The geeks are here. The geeks are us. 1977, Star Wars hits the big screen. Right place, right time, right idea. It captured the imaginations of young and old, setting the stage for a new, modern era. Now, yes, Star Wars was the product of many, many epics and big ideas before its time. But what made Star Wars unique was the medium in which it was told. It had mass appeal. It had an aspirational nature. It had an ability to flawlessly translate into product, and the way it inspired people to simply dress up and talk about it. It changed our behavior. It pivoted our commercial love for entertainment into something greater, something hungrier. Star Wars is what puts its foothold into our emotional and cultural hearts, and it is through that cracked door, that precedent, that all other ideas have since flowed. Another way to say it is thanks in no small part to the history and successes of Star Wars, geek culture has transitioned into just culture in the Western world. It has emerged from the shadows of our parents' basements and become an acceptable and integral piece of our consumer lives, extending influence over all the core stuff that makes us us. From cradle to grave, from t-shirt to tattoo, it is an easy and less politicized means of self-identity and tribal identity in a world exhausted by the traditional buckets of politics and religion. To be clear, politics and religion are not going anywhere anytime soon, but geek culture is arguably providing more efficient meaning to the masses with its flashy, scandal-free fun, timeless morality, and a la carte appeal. Don't believe me? Let's look at some of the numbers. So you'll see in the top, these are the numbers that substantiate the things falling out of my mouth. Okay, so the first one is Star Wars The Force Awakens. $2 billion worldwide box office since December, all right? Third highest grossing film of all time and climbing, currently tracking via NPD at $700 million at retail, right? That's 3 months of performance. Digital gaming sales last year alone closed in at $61 billion. 8 of the top 10 films of all time are tethered to or furnished by geek culture. Excluding religious texts, geeky books account for about 3 of the top-selling books of all time and 10 of the top 20, totaling hundreds of millions of copies translated into thousands and thousands of languages. That's not to mention the countless television shows on air today, like The Flash and Game of Thrones, or the tens, if not hundreds, of new high-profile projects coming down the pike, perfectly tailored to our longing consumer dollars. Couple that with the fact that there is legacy catalogs of content like the X-Files finding new life and new audiences via streaming services like Netflix, and it is a golden age of geekdom. But so what? What does it mean? How did we get here? Where are we going? This is the part of the story that really turns me on as an amateur anthropologist. Because if you've read any of Peter L. Berger's works, the answer is apparent and it's as clear as day. Okay, so for those of you unfamiliar, Berger was born in 1929 and is still kicking around today, God bless him, and is arguably one of the largest sociologists to ever touch the trade. And if you're unfamiliar, sociology is basically the kissing cousin of anthropology. Dr. Berger and his sociological theory of religion comes under a book called The Sacred Canopy: Elements of a Sociological Theory of Religion, and it's a real trip. If you've not heard or read anything about it, I dare you. Fair warning, it's terribly dry. It's a chore and a half to get through, but halfway, you're going to call into question everything you've ever known about yourself, your family, and the world around you. Somewhere near the end, he'll piece you back together, but I take no responsibility for what happens in the in-between. It's riveting stuff. So Berger has 4 major ideas that I want to share with you today to prove a point. The first is the incomplete nature of man, which when distilled reads something like this. Mankind is born incomplete. Unlike many animals equipped with the benefit of instinct, specialized physiology, and environmental acclimation at birth, humans are born completely vulnerable. This means that we are dependent on social relationships and interactions in order to survive the earliest stages of life. Simple, right? I've never seen a baby scavenging for food in the dirt, at least not effectively. And I've certainly never seen a baby fight another baby to the death for a bottle, and honestly, I hope to never do so. The point is, we are social creatures in nature, born dependent on social relationships from the start. The second idea is called the dialectic process of world building and maintenance, which again, at its simplest, reads something like this. Society is a product of man's flawed nature, our dependency on others to survive. It is a dialectic, or dialogue of knowledge, a bank of ideas passed down from generation to generation, ever evolving, ever shaping, and ever being shaped by the people within it. There's no part of the human experience that is not influenced by the big idea that is society. Now stay with me here, people. You still good? So if babies are born vulnerable and in need of society to raise it, eventually this process will shape all the pieces and parts and personality of that baby. This is a very nurture-heavy theory, by the way. And everything that baby experiences in life will be through the lens of, well, this is society in which it was raised, okay? Now, the third idea is a deeper dive into something that looks at how society was formed. It is a model in 3 parts. Externalization, man makes reality. Objectivation, which is society is an objective reality. And internalization, which is society makes man. Allow me to demonstrate this model with, well, we can talk about the modern chair. Once upon a time, mankind was exclusively sitting on its ass upon the ground. For reasons unclear, someone decided or observed that a more comfortable means of rest was upright. Ergo, someone concepted the first chair. This is externalization, innovation on known knowledge in the interest of pushing the big idea of society forward. And with the hard work of chair concepting out of the way, someone built that chair. This is objectivation. The chair is no longer an idea, it is a thing. And because it is a thing, people interact with it, and suddenly what was once an abstraction simply becomes a tacit part of the big idea that is society. We all now sit in chairs at presentations, watching yahoos read because of that great innovation. And we don't question what a chair is when we walk into the room, or what the etiquette is, because many generations before us put it all together and passed it on. We inherited it. Still good? Let's go back to the baby. So if the baby is vulnerable and needs society to grow, it will approach life colored by the society in which it grows. In this dialectic or dialogue, the baby will receive a rich bank of knowledge and assets built upon the backbone of countless generations of others figuring it out. Maybe if the baby has drive, or society recognizes the baby as someone valuable to the big idea, the baby may innovate on an old idea, and that innovation may become the new norm. Eventually, someone somewhere will inherit that knowledge and innovate upon it, and on and on and on until the end of time. Cool, no? And lastly, the final idea at the center of this model is the nomos, which is basically your piece of this process. The nomos represents your individual identity as you traverse this cycle of society. It is your operating system, your worldview. It is a complete catalog of your core information and experiences, including education, language, religion, politics, and everything else. All right, so now that we've got the basics, let's jump back into the so what, because we do have two main questions to answer. How did we get here, and what does it mean? It took countless generations of ideas to create the major cultural milestone of Star Wars. In its wake, like ideas or models have populated the landscape, as others inherit the precedents and attempt to recreate or innovate upon its successes. Why? Well, there are big dollars at stake. The generation that grew up on Star Wars, and like ideas, desires for these experiences to transcend childhood. Why must the party stop? The generation that believed fantasy transcending adolescence as taboo is dying out. Therefore, with no one in their way, adult geeks with families are extremely likely to pass on their brand affinities and preferences as a sacred knowledge. And this process will likely net positively and shape the next generation and the next and the next. Like it or not, geek culture is here to stay, and it has and will permeate every part of our society. How we consume, how we interact with one another, and ultimately how we interact with the broader world, because collectively, we really just like this stuff. It inspires, and the shackles are off. So now what? What are we going to do with ourselves? I don't know about you, but I'm going to ride it out joyously. And I might add, with my equally geeky wife, there's so much to see and experience and learn from what's happening in geek culture. And to be clear, it's not just entertainment-based. I mean, this is happening across a multitude of geeky avenues, like science and the arts, though admittedly I've focused almost exclusively on the latter. We truly are living in a golden age. And as it relates to my own personal work, I'm taking these observations into practice, developing new models of entertainment that play intuitively to the process. Content breeds consumer products, which breeds culture. Look familiar? The point is, I'd like to believe I'm now playing the part of the inheritor and innovator, taking the lessons of the past and designing the next generation of ideas to inspire the next generation and the next. Here are just a few... all right, that's cool. Here are just a few examples of what the future may look like. These are just a small sampling of the shows and ideas that I'm actively pitching now. And while I'd love nothing more than to give you a sneak peek at this future, I'd have to get you and the entirety of the internet streaming audience to sign an NDA first. But as the wise psychologist and parapsychologist Peter Venkman once said, back off, man. I'm a scientist. You guys, this has been an absolute joy and honor. My name is Jason Bischoff, and I'll see you guys in the funny books. Thank you very much for your time.